Justice at Calayan Educational Foundation, Incorporated.
So, good morning. So, to David and to Don and Felix, and probably to my buddy, Kevin. So, actually, I'm here as a guinea pig. Okay? A guinea pig because just to tell you and to somehow to show that with the proper training, okay, criminologists like us would be able to teach with some level of competence cybercrime to our students. Okay, that's why I'm here. So I'm the guinea pig. Okay, so we're going to talk about critical steps in incident response. So this was first introduced to us, taught to us, but I think it's the second meeting that we have when they created the cybercrime committee, because the first meeting was with Kevin, with Paul, and with Brian, right? Okay. So after that, the second meeting of the committee that the USDOJ created was a meeting with the director, okay, of the, so this one, so the director of the computer laboratory of the US Department of Justice. And from him, we discovered that it just takes in the proper training to be familiar with the basic the basic skills of digital forensics. But like I said, we're going to talk about only basics. Okay, it is just the tip of the iceberg. Not actually, it's only the top of the tip of the iceberg. What we're going to study here, but from there, like I always say, you can enroll in a university of the YouTube. Okay, and there you can somehow learn some of the skills that you would also need to teach your students, but because you have now the foundation. Before I look at YouTube, try to understand what they're doing, and zero. It doesn't register in my mind what they're talking about. But after our training, it becomes clear, and somehow I'm able to follow the instructions given in the University of YouTube. Okay, probably can you also use that so that you become more proficient and efficient in teaching cybercrime. Okay, so what is incident response? Incident response talks about what you're going to do in a search scene. Now, what is a search scene? So normally in a ordinary case, we have the crime scene, right? So as I think has been discussed by Patrolman Lebranda, okay? So morely they do search in a crime scene. Search for digital evidences, digital evidence, okay? So however, in searching for digital evidence, it is important that we are able to identify sources of information and potential evidence. It is the critical one, simply because digital evidence are easily destroyed, corrupted, okay? And once it is destroyed, it would be very difficult to retrieve the information, especially the information in RAM, okay? So that's why we have to identify when and if we need to image the RAM. So normally, in incident response, you have to do the 3 steps, and later on, we will discuss the 3 steps. Now, so critical incident response, what are we going to do? So as Obi have said, and I think the Cybercrime ACG investigator yesterday, and even Kevin, have said that identify, preserve the evidence is crucial. It's time bound. Okay? Now, so how do we document the scene? I think the Patrolman Lebranda has also give us an idea, on how we're going to document the scene. But let's say, for example, in an operation, sorry, Kevin, I used to walk around, sorry.
No, I do the same.
Okay. So let's say, for example, in a search scene, okay, you come across this image, okay? So what would come into your mind? What type of offense do you think is happening?
Trafficking?
Trafficking? Okay, could be child pornography, or it could be online
Cyber sex.
or sex case, right? An online sexual exploitation of children. So the first thing is how are we going to document the scene? Diba? So we have to identify again what are the digital evidence that we need to preserve, since we talk about online. So it talks about ICT. Okay? So probably you would always see first is the
Laptop.
the monitor. It is
Yes.
powered on. Okay? So if it is powered on, what should we do? Diba? Should we check the web page?
Leave it as is.
Okay? Where it is connected and who are viewing the child pornography? Okay? Or are we going to focus our attention on the
Cell phone.
the mobile. Okay? Probably there's money in it. Okay? Or the other digital device that there are besides the computer. So basically, you have to identify which of those have the potential digital evidence. Okay? Now, so we have learned yesterday, right? We do the basic or traditional crime scene investigation. We preserve the scene. So according to Patrolman Lebranda, they have many security to preserve the scene and to prevent anybody from touching the digital evidence. And basically, you have to separate what? The suspect from all digital device. Okay? Even their cell phones, you have to remove the cell phones from them because they can swallow the memory card. I remember one of our training in the trafficking in person, and I think it's Eric Umali. Okay, so it's Eric when the people burst into the room to do a rescue. He took out the cell phone, he removed the cover, and he simulation, he swallowed the memory card. So we would like to prevent that. Okay? So we have to protect the scene and we have to protect the digital evidence. Second is we follow the golden rules of crime scene investigation. And again, what is the golden rule of crime scene investigation?
Do not touch.
Okay, we do not touch anything unless we have photographed it, sketched it, recorded, and everything. Okay, after that, we do
Search.
the search plan. And I think we have learned from Judge Montesa that in order for them to issue a warrant, whatever warrant it is among the four, they want to see and understand what is the search plan of the police investigators. Okay? So part of the search plan, you have to understand how are you going to protect the digital evidence. Also, you have to determine what type of digital evidence are you looking for. What type of digital device would you expect to see at the search scene? What else? And probably other evidence that is necessary for the case. Okay, to prove the guilt of the suspects. Okay? Then afterwards, what do we have to do? Then we have to recognize collection, preservation of digital evidence. And that becomes the tricky part. How do we preserve ephemeral evidence that we cannot touch? Diba? And sometimes, if they are too techy enough, they can even destroy this physical evidence through the online internet, through remote. Okay? So we have to protect the digital evidence. So let's go back to our scene that we're going to investigate. So if you're going to ask how many digital evidence do you think there are in this photograph? You have 5? You have 6? 7?
1.
1.
No.
So let's see. So obviously the number 1 would be
The laptop.
the laptop, of course. Okay. What else? The mobile phone. That's right. What else? Okay. Probably. What is that? Okay, the router. Okay. According to Patrolman Labranda, there are things that can be retrieved from the router. What else?
Hard disk.
Okay, the external drive, right? What else?
The disk.
Okay, the credit card probably. Okay, what else? Okay,
Money.
the money. Syempre. Obviously, the money. You cannot forget the money. And the CD. Okay, probably this one. I don't know. Somehow it looks like something. Maybe there's information there. A blue book. Okay, what else? Nasa ilalim ng number 4, credit card.
Receipt.
This one? Okay. Okay, probably. What else?
Speaker.
Oh, putol. This one. It's a novelty USB, just like what Kevin had. The Minion one. Then probably the phone or
Printer.
this one, probably there's something here, the documents, names of suspects, okay? So basically, these are the things that you would be able to get, okay? So just to identify them, okay? Digital evidence, potential digital devices, okay? So that's good. So now let's say, for example, we're able to identify them. What would be the next, okay? So we have to ensure the protection of the probative value of all evidence collected. But the question is, how do we protect the probative value of all evidence collected. In the discussion yesterday of the Patrol of Uganda of ACG, how do you protect the probative value of the digital evidence? So let's say, for example, you are the one at the search scene. How would you protect the probative value of the digital evidence?
Forensic imaging.
Forensic imaging, yes. But before you do that, what do you need to do? Huh? Bag and tag?
Label.
Secure the crime scene.
Yeah, we have already secured the crime scene, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. But now you're going to, if you would remember the discussion of Patron at Lebranda, the people, the investigator unit, the SWAT, something like that. And after they have already make sure that the area is safe, that's the time that the forensic investigator would come in, right? So now it's his or her job to protect the probative value of digital evidence. But the question is how? Okay, taking photographs, so documenting, that's true. Okay? Record of evidence collected. Remember, he said, photograph the back of the laptop for
proper connection, I think.
What do you have to photograph beneath the laptop?
Identification.
Yeah, identification. What can you find at the back of the
Serial
laptop?
number.
Yes, the serial number and the product model or number. Okay? So then you have to maintain what? Chain of custody. Okay? Yeah, and it must be signed by the witnesses, right? Remember? Okay? And you have to, as Patrol Rebranda said, you have to fill up this form, right? Remember this form? It's the form that the PNP use so that they can itemize what are the digital devices recovered at the search scene. Okay? And this would maintain the chain of custody. Okay? Now, let's say, for example, in your search scene, you discover again, let's remember what we have discussed yesterday, that the computer is powered off. What should you do?
Leave it off.
Okay, you leave it turned off. Then?
Bring it to the crime.
So, that's true.
Laboratory.
You leave it on. You leave it off, right? You don't turn it on. But, so if the computer is powered off, we bag and tag the computer and bring it to the laboratory. Pfizer Plus.
Can I add
Yes,
in
yes,
something?
sure.
So, you were on such a great roll, I didn't want to interrupt. But I want to point out something. If it's a mobile phone, and stop me if you're going to teach this later on.
No problem.
If it's a mobile phone, the first thing, at the first point where you are legally allowed to do this, and I can't talk about what that point is. I wish the judge was still here. She'd be able to know, right? But at the first point when you're legally able to do this, you put that phone in airplane mode.
Yeah.
We all know airplane mode, right?
Yeah.
Because cell phones are designed to connect. They're designed to be accessible, right? But if we want to preserve this evidence, if we want to protect that evidence, rule number one is don't connect, right? Stay away from the internet, stay away from Bluetooth, stay away from text messages. So as soon as you legally are able to, put that in airplane mode to prevent any outside influence from coming in and changing the data. One other thing you can do, most laptops now, how do we connect to the internet? Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi.
We can't really turn that off without modifying the contents of the drive, right? But a lot of computers, like in my home, my desktop computer, I don't have Wi-Fi. How do I connect to the internet? With the Ethernet cable, right?
Yeah.
Dongle.
What you can do without affecting any of the evidence is unplug the network cable. That will disconnect the computer from the internet, so no outside force can come in and change the evidence while you're... I mean, obviously, if the computer's off, you don't have to worry about this. But if the computer's on, you want to make sure, the bad guy's friend who says, oh my God, my friend is getting arrested right now. I should break into his computer and delete all the evidence. We need to prevent that. So you can unplug the network cable without affecting any of your evidence. Okay? Good?
But I have a question, Kevin.
Oh, God. Already?
Normally, the mobile phone has password and it's in standby mode. How would you put that in airplane mode?
Good question. If it has a password, you know what I would do? And I swear to God, this might work. If you're the bad guy, I have you arrested, I have you in handcuffs, and I need to put your phone in airplane mode, just say, hey, what's the password? You would be amazed at how many people would just tell you. We're all criminologists here, so we know criminology. We know the theories of crime, learning theory and social disorganization, all the famous ones, right? I'm going to become a famous criminologist when I publish my theory of crime. It's called Kevin's Super Awesome Theory of Crime. It goes like this. Criminals commit crime because they're stupid. So if you have a criminal and you wanted to put his phone in airplane mode, but he has a password, just say, hey, what's the password? He might tell you. Another point I want to make here is with traditional crime, we have one crime scene, right? If I pull out a gun, I shoot Dennis dead. Bang! Somebody comes up and arrests me, right? How many crime scenes do we have? Where is the offender? Right here. Where is the victim? Right here. Where is the scene of the crime? Right here. With cybercrime, those can be 3 completely different places, 3 completely different jurisdictions. If somebody in the Philippines, it hacks the computer of somebody in China, but the server that the Chinese victim's information was stored on is in Japan, well, guess what? We have one crime with 3 different crime scenes. The Philippines, China, Japan. And that makes things incredibly complicated, legally speaking, which is why I'm very glad I'm not a lawyer. That's far too hard a job for me to do. David's way braver than me. Anyway.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Can
Okay.
I
Yeah, sure.
Oh, gosh.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
No problem.
Just a quick comment, because this is something that we teach our other, like in this case, law enforcers and lawyers or prosecutors. In that question about phones, okay, yeah, actually the sequence should be like this, because do you guys use Faraday bags?
Yeah,
About
yeah,
Faraday?
yeah.
Okay, so basically we've begun to teach in many of our cyber courses, in cases where you encounter a phone, right? The sequence would be if you have they call it a Faraday bag. Okay, I guess it's spelled Faraday, Faraday bag. Okay, it's an evidence bag, but it's specifically for mobile phones, such that when you put the mobile phone there, it it's a force field, so you can't, it can't send anything out and it can't receive anything in. So in terms of the sequence, right, I think many in the Philippines at some point will already have Faraday bags, because that's being taught now. Okay, we teach that in our proving online. That's the only problem. It's pricey,
Expensive.
but it's being taught like in our proving online sexual exploitation when they encounter a phone, Faraday bag. And if you don't have it, the next sequence is airplane mode. Okay, and if nothing else, his awesome theory. What is it again?
Kevin's Super Awesome Theory of Crime.
What's the password?
Yeah, what's the password? So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. So Faraday was a physicist way back, hundreds of years before we were born. And he found that there was a certain blend of metals, and if you make a cage out of these metals, then radio signals can't go out or in. So now you don't have to make like a metal cage, you can do it in a bag. It's special, some fiber, something in the bag, and it doesn't allow signals in or out. So if you put the cell phone in there, it doesn't matter whether it's in airplane mode or not. Signals can't get in and out. Back to you, Dan.
Okay, so that's okay. So let's continue. So basically, those are methods in which we can protect digital evidence. Now, so like I said, we photograph the back of the laptop. So to get what? The product number and the serial number. So this would again protect the chain of custody and to ensure the probative value of the digital evidence. Now, next. But again, the question is, what is the correct way of preserving digital data powered on computer? Right? And if you're listening yesterday, you probably understand how you're going to protect and preserve digital evidence on a powered on computer. How? Get the volatile data. Okay, that's true. Okay? So normally are we going to turn it off? No. Are we going to pull the plug?
No.
No. Okay? So, now, is there any procedure in the PNP that tells what should be done if the computer is powered on? Well, I've discovered this. Okay? In the PNP manual, special crime, ang sinasabi nila, okay, under paragraph C and D, do not start up equipment that is switch off. Switch off equipment that is running only when you have made sure that this is appropriate. Meaning you have done everything to protect the volatile data. Okay? A document that is open and visible, for example, may be encrypted when stored.
Pop quiz. Where is the most important volatile data stored?
RAM.
Ah, very good. You guys are paying attention. Much better than my classes.
Okay, there's another one. So therefore, sorry. Okay, so that's it. So again, we have to avoid looking for incriminating evidence when the computer is powered on. Okay, trying to look for possible names, possible websites, and anything that would somehow alter the current condition of the computer. So we have understood that yesterday, right? We don't do that. Now, again, from the POP manual of the PNP 2013, ano sabi nila? What does it say? Secure the computer as evidence. If the computer is off, do not turn it on. If the computer is on, do not turn it off. Nor touch its mouse or its keyboard, just to prevent any alteration of the current condition of the digital device.
There's one exception to this, and it is very, very, very rare, but you should know. If I show up on a scene and I look at the laptop and it's on, but it says something like deleting, like that, and I can tell that evidence is like currently in the process of being destroyed, that is the one situation where it would be appropriate, because remember it says until appropriate, that is the one situation I can think of where it would be appropriate to turn off the computer immediately instead of waiting.
So force shutdown. Force shut down the computer.
If it's a desktop, unplug. If it's a laptop, force shutdown. You just hold down the power button for 10 seconds or something and it dies. Yeah.
Okay. So that's how we protect digital evidence. Now let's talk about what are the three steps of incident response. So again, powered on computer. We have to protect the volatile data, as asked by Kevin. Where do we find the most important volatile data? It's in RAM. So that's why the first step of incident response is to image RAM. But the question is, how do you image RAM? And I think you understand what is the word image, right? It is it like copying the hard drive or not? Well, you have to understand, imaging and copying are two different things. Okay? Copying, let's say for example, the computer has a 1 terabyte hard drive. And let's say for example, there's about 200 GB of data. When you copy the hard drive, you only copy the 200 GB data. But when you say imaging the RAM or the hard drive, if the hard drive has about 1 terabyte, you copy the entire 1 terabyte. Whether it has only about 200 GB, 100 GB of data. So that's the difference. So we don't copy, we image. And later on, Kevin would demonstrate to you how you're going to image RAM. Okay? But sometimes if there's a question, would that not alter the computer when you plug in something to the computer? Kevin?
It will.
Yes, it will alter what's in there. It is impossible to image RAM without changing it. But the good news is the change is very, very slight and completely technically unavoidable. So judges, at least in the United States, I assume judges here would too, have said, look, it's okay to do this. It was the only way to get it. It was a very, very, very small, very predictable change. And it did not It does not do random changes. It's a very predictable, very small, and completely unavoidable change.
Okay. So therefore, there's no problem as long as you do the procedure right on imaging RAM. Okay? So, what's RAM? I think you understand what's RAM. And if you talk about a PC, you would see this. But also in a laptop, just much smaller. Okay? Now,
And more expensive.
more expensive. That's true. So, in RAM, why do we need to image RAM? Well, according to Obi, in one of his discussion, it's good to image RAM because this would provide us a alibi proof that the suspect would say that he did not know that there is a file, or let's say, for example, child porn in his laptop, simply because probably a Russian or an American hacker hacked his computer, put the child porn there. Okay? So, if that is the alibi, what we need to show is that the suspect knows that the file is in his computer. And how can we prove that? Well, it's in RAM. That's why it's important that we image the entire content of the RAM. If the computer has only 4 GB RAM, it's easy to copy. But if they're using a high-end computer, let's say, for example, a 32 GB RAM, then it will take a lot of space. Therefore, if you would remember, Patrono Lebranda said, if you're going to image RAM, you need to have a big storage device. If the computer has a 16 GB RAM, then therefore you need to use 64. And if the computer has 32, then you have 64. If you're going to copy a 1 terabyte, then you need to have 2 terabyte destination file, data or
Storage.
directory. Okay? So, you have to understand, sabi nga nila, everything that you do in your computer passes through RAM. So, there's nothing that you can do in your computer that would not pass through RAM. Okay? If you have an encrypted container in your computer, and you access that encrypted container, you enter the password, it's in RAM. Okay? But if you turn it